Hi everyone, I'm Sonia Harrier, Beauty Director at the Telegraph and Stella magazine. And I am hi, there's people joining already. I'm so excited to be joined today by mega amazing makeup artist, Ruby Hammer. So she's going to talk through some of our amazing, the nominees for our Subscribers' Choice Award. And then we're going to go into loads of questions because we've been inundated with questions for Ruby. So this is going to be a really practical session. So I think we're going to be joined by Ruby.
Hello, Sonia. Hello. How are you?
We've got lots of makeup stuff to talk about today. So obviously, as one of our esteemed judges for our Stella Smart Beauty Awards,
Yes.
One of the categories that we had, if everyone, I mean, it was a bit of a whirlwind day last week. We had a virtual judging day of all of 9 of the categories for the Stella Smart Beauty Awards. But the 10th category is open to all of our subscribers and readers. So we've got 12 very classic, amazing beauty products. You know, they're not necessarily new, but they're sort of can't live without beauty products. So what we'll do at the end is direct you to a link just to vote on your favorite, you know, pick your favorite, whichever one you like. And then we'll now just talk through lots of questions. So Ruby, from our Subscribers' Choice Award, we've got the Laura Mercier concealer, which we absolutely love. I mean, the Secret Camouflage, it's a classic for a reason, right?
It's a classic and it's an iconic product. You know, we throw that word about quite a lot, iconic. But you know what? For however many years, and not to be that they're competing with Stella, which is a lovely magazine and newspaper, but you know, in style awards or any set of awards, so whether it's yours or somebody else's, it always wins. I've got all 8 of them. There are 8 shades and they're split in double. So that's in my kit. My personal one is number 7. So I have got that. That's my personal one. They always come in 2 shades like that. And the thing about the Laura Mercier Secret Camouflage is people get scared because it's slightly harder. You know, it's not very easy to use like a liquidy concealer or a dotted or a pot or something like that, and they think, oh, I don't know what you do that. But once you've prepped your skin, and especially if you've got sort of pigment marks or anything like that, if you can use like a pinpoint dotted, I'm just picking up a little bit of the product with like a little brush. And then you can see I have little pigmentation marks. So if I just go dab, dab, dab.
Are you using the concealer shade or the corrector shade? Because I think
they're both concealers. So they're not, so they've got 2 colors to play with. And normally I kind of use the slightly paler one underneath my eyes and the slightly darker one on where the actual marks are, or you know, the remnants of, and sometimes I just run my fingers into one and the other and tap it like that and then just tap it on. So find the thing that works best for you. But the wonderful thing about this formula is once it's on, it's not going to budge. So it's wonderful for hot, humid days. It's lovely for on shoots and cameras and red carpet. It's wonderful for brides. It's wonderful if you've got rosacea, where, yes, it's lovely to have something that's very nice and light, but that's not going to last if you have a menopause hot flush or you suddenly get caught in the rain in the winter or something like that. So it's as long as you've prepped the skin and made it nice and moist, not too greasy, but nice and comfortable, this is a superb concealer that is there. We have to carry it in our kits, and we wouldn't have enough things in our kits that are too heavy and too, you know, like cumbersome, that don't work. So I have to say, since I've started, I have always have that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a question that's come up a lot out of all of the questions for our live today is how to cover under eye circles. And I know that's a massive bugbear of my own because my under eyes are my problem area. So what is what's the best technique for kind of getting the under eyes looking really nice and fresh, but without caking on too much product? Because I think there's a fine line, isn't there?
There is. And I always think it's a two-prong attack.
Right.
You have to address it first with your skincare in the long term. So try and get some sleep, drink lots of water, all of that. And regularly, you're going to have to use some sort of eye cream with a gel factor or something that actually helps attack the dark circles. You know, and there's some from the concentrate from Crème de la Mer, there's wonderful new ones from Murad. There are everything in that price point. So you have to do that first. The other things I swear by is when you particularly, not every day, but when you really want to look good, those little eye masks, patches, those are wonderful. You know, people from like Trish McAvoy or for a myriad of them, Peter Thomas Roth, all of that. So do that first, so you prepare that area really, really well. Then just when you put in your moisturizer, you're tapping it, just a little bit of tapping motions to just drain that area nicely, the fluid, so that it's as not taut, but so it's not as spongy.
Yeah.
Then you really do need to look at whether you need a corrector and then a concealer. Now your corrector should be something that's peachy colored or almost, I mean, depending how dark you are, and you're not that dark, Sonia. So there are lots of things from MAC, from Becca, from, you know, they're little palettes and that you just dab Bobbi Brown, they're lovely different textures, serum ones you apply, you let that sink in, and then you put your concealer on top. Thin layers, not one thick goopy layer.
Right. So the point of a corrector is essentially to cancel out the darkness under the eyes.
That, you know, because the skin is so thin, and it's also where that bit of blue comes, you know, the veins. If you haven't slept, that bit of darkness, that bit of, and some people inherently have that genetically. You know, if we're Southeast Asian, you tend to have it. If you're a new mum, if you're depressed, if you're anxiety, whatever, you know, like where you might have been drinking a little bit more. So those are the things that are not long ongoing. But if you have that genetically, then you know you're going to have to do your skincare and then put a corrector to just diffuse that bit of darkness and then throw your concealer on. Because some people think, I'll just use my concealer, but you still get that bit of grey shadowing coming through. Or you keep looking at it and think, oh, it hasn't quite taken it away. So you're a little bit more heavy-handed with it. You're probably better off at night with it, but in the daytime, you don't want to, people look at you and then they can see these areas where you've just tried to hide it and is actually shining a beacon. Oh, she's got dark circles. She's trying to hide those dark circles. And
I mean, do you need to set it in a certain way? Do you need to because obviously we've had a few questions about hand dry and humid weather, and you know.
So I think you definitely do need to set it. So one is putting the corrector on. Then I think when you put the concealer, I would put it underneath the dark shadows, not literally on top of it, you know, a little bit like that. And then I think a very lovely translucent powder. So again, one of my favorites is, there are lots out there. They're from L'Oreal Paris, there's Laura Mercier, there's, if you want to go luxury end, there's by Terry that feels like velvet. That will hold that thing in place and won't shift and slide around. And I particularly like doing that near the T-zone and just on the chin here. So.
And with so we've obviously in the lineup of the 12 products, we've got the Guerlain Terracotta bronzer, which is such a classic. I mean, it's one of the best bronzers, and also it comes in so many different shades. But when it comes to bronzer, I think what we've had many questions about is, you know, how do you apply it without it looking too overdone, or what's the correct positions and the placement to put it? What's your best kind of tricks for
I
using
think
bronzer?
you hit the nail on the head. So Guerlain were one of the first people to do that, and they did it. Not only does it just, I love it. It just
Oh,
smells fine.
smell! I know the
And
smell's so nostalgic.
yeah, and they have all different formulas. They have it super matte. They have it with a little bit of pearl. They have it a little bit more warm in shade, or they have some that are a bit more reddy, you know, just to add a bit of life. So it's not quite a blusher, but it gives you a pop of just so that, because sometimes with bronzers you can get that sort of dirty, unwashed look because people just look like it's not. So the easiest way for me is, if you're going to use it straight on top of your skincare, you know, like I'm not going to put foundation on, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to use my bronzer to give me a colour. I will say you've got your moisturiser on, you might do a little bit of concealer or something. Then I would say a very light dusting of powder all over your face, just very, very light. It's not meant to be thick. It's just to give a better surface, but because these Guerlain ones, they're powder finish. So if you just put it straight away on your skin, it is going to streak. It is going to sort of be heavier in one area and not so heavy on the other. So the other thing is the tool. Some people use huge brushes, which is good, or they use tiny little skinny ones like that. And I think, what are they doing? That is going to just streak again. So it's very good to find, you can either use a big one like that or a medium one like that, so that you pick up some colour, dust off the excess. And the best way to say is to start off where the sun would actually hit your face, so the prominent areas of your face. So that's usually, look, your temples, and you can go in one direction and then in the other. On top of your cheeks, upwards and outwards, meeting the temple, out there and upwards. A little bit underneath your jaw because they catch the light, a little bit on your chin, and then I don't do the first drop of colour on my nose. I do that after it's already got some and I've dispersed some of it. Then you put a little bit on your nose because that's also sticking out. I also like to do a little bit on here because that's also your brow bones stick out. That makes it look more natural. And I think constantly look at yourself to just be able to evaluate, do I need a little bit more? Or step away and see whether that's enough, and just gradually build that up, blending and refining as you go along. And make sure you do with the residue what's left on there in your, you know, or down here, depending on your neckline and colour.
Yeah. And how about if you've got, again, I'm feeding through a lot of the questions we've been asked over the course of the week, but if you've got slightly drier skin, would you still advise going for a powder formula, or what's your advice in terms of formulas then for your skin?
People think of a powder as, oh my God, it's cloak and daggers. No, if you've primed your skin properly, you've hydrated, you've moisturized, so it's not too greasy, but not too oily, it's going to be comfortable. And then it's literally a smidgen of powder to allow like onto like. This is a powder product and we're applying it. So if you, it's like painting a wall. When you render it smooth or well to begin with, it means you don't need so much buffing. It will just go on nicely because it's not catching on a bit of moisture or a bit of this. So I wouldn't, even with dry skin, a hint of the wonderful hydrating powders that are out there, a hint of it is literally a hint to give you a better, smoother cover. Or you can then use something like a Chanel Soleil de Bronze, you know, something like that, if that's your product of choice for bronzing. It's just with the Guerlain one now, there are so many shades. Pick the right one. You'll love wearing it. So that 30-second prep will make this product go on beautifully.
Yeah, I'm totally a recent convert in kind of using bronzers. I'd always get quite cautious around them because the thing is, if they're not applied properly, you know, it's you can either end up looking a bit streaky or it doesn't melt in well with your foundation. But the formulas really are so fine milled now, aren't they? So they do kind of give that seamless finish.
They are the first ones that created this, so they have got a lot of experience, and they've really fine-tuned it. And over the years, you must have had it, because I've had it, where they send you another batch saying, this is our newly reformulated, so it's even more thin and gossamer light and made foolproof. So the only thing to be careful about is not to use something too dark. It's meant to give you a shade or 2 shades most. It's not meant to make you lily white and then you're going to look like I've just spent a month in Ibiza. You know, it's not meant to give you a glow. There are other products, whether you need a fake tan or a spray tan or something like that to have a base underneath. This is not going to give you that, but this is going to enhance and just, and it's a transitional product. It's lovely in summer, it's lovely on the beach, it's lovely in the daytime, it's lovely to take you into, you know, when the seasons change, and in the winter when you're feeling too washed out.
I think that's a really interesting point, to pick almost, you know, the closest shade to your natural skin tone in a bronzer. I mean, that's really, because you wouldn't normally think that. Normally you think, okay, let's go maybe 3 or 4 shades deeper, so you do really get that bronzed effect. But I guess for that really natural, you know, sun-kissed look.
Healthy and classy. I think we can go so wrong. Sometimes you kind of see them where it stops there and you think, what about this part, lady? Or what about this? And it just looks, I just almost want to take a flannel and give somebody a scrub, you know, like, oh. So I think if you don't go too dark, and you can always add more, just build up gradually. And those are
one of the other products in our 12 finalists for the Subscribers Choice Award is the classic Bobbi Brown Shimmer Brick, which I mean, it's the kind of, that was one of my first beauty products, you know, my first kind of luxury beauty product. Oh my goodness, that's incredible. You've got a trio palette.
Just 3 of them.
Expert.
So I've got 3 of them so that you've got a thing. Now, the thing about the Bobbi Brown Brick, it is like you said, it's a wonderful, wonderful tool, but it has got a little bit of pearl, you know, it's a highlighter, so
highlighter-ish,
and it gives you it can do the work of a blusher and a highlighter, so you need to be careful that is not super matte, and don't go bananas with it. You literally do sort of sprinkle it, touching the bones, you know, like a little bit there, in there. You can do a little bit of your eyes with it. You can, it's a wonderful little, because it's baked, it's not going to break and make a mess. But be careful that you don't want to look like you are glowing from outer space if you're a bit too heavy-handed with it. It's literally very strategically put it on, and it works beautifully with your bronzer.
And so could you use that in lieu of using a bronzer? You could just go, you know, tinted moisturizer or foundation, and then use the Bobbi Brown Shimmer Brick as your blusher / highlighter / bronzer. With that kind of,
I guess you could. Again, it depends on the color, because they've got quite a few shades. So you need to pick the one that's going to suit you. You know how sometimes you might just want pink. Sometimes they've got a more terracotta-y colorway. And then they have got a few shades, so I would again pick one.
What's the most kind of universal shade out of them that you think is kind of suit most?
I don't know if it's a smoky brick. This is the thing. So I've got one, but I don't know if it's an old one, you know. So I don't want to say it and say topaz or this one or that one. And then they say discontinued or it's got a different name or something like that.
I mean, the beauty is there are so many colours, right?
I
So
think
you
just
can
go
kind of,
online and you can see by eye if you're
yeah.
not going into a store, but at least you can see, oh yeah, that kind of looks more like what I'm looking for. So I'd rather not just say, because my one is quite a dark one, is quite an old one. So things that are in my personal kit are usually the oldest one because they don't, you know, I don't share that in my kit. And the ones in my kit are the most recent ones or the latest formulations of it, because I don't want somebody to use it on someone and they go, what's that? And then they can't go and buy it.
Yeah.
There are a few.
That's that awful thing when, you know, you find your favourite new beauty product or lipstick and then it's discontinued. But that's not happening with any of our classics. So
No.
When it comes to blusher, so we've got another of the products in our sort of classic edit, is the Nars Orgasm blush, which is that kind of classic peachy pinky blusher, which seems to work on most skin tones. I mean, how would you is a blusher very much still the apples of the cheeks now, or does it all depend on your face shape? Because I feel as someone as an owner of a very sort of round face myself, I find if I have a blusher here, it sort of makes my face look rounder, whereas, you know, slightly further up. And I think this is a tip that you gave me years ago, to kind of apply my blusher slightly further up. So what are the kind of different placements that we should do?
Two things you hit on. So it obviously, firstly, it's got to go with your own face shape. And you have got, yes, it is a little bit rounder, but what that means is look how beautiful, smooth and gorgeous you look. So if you put it on the apples of your cheeks, it is going to make it more rounder because it makes you look softer and more young. You know, it's like children, you know, like when we used to just pinch here and the colour is just there. You look very youthful and it looks very soft and it looks like I've just had a walk and energetic and things like that. As we get older, or you want a more sophisticated look with your blush, then you sort of dab a bit, you must dab it on there because it looks healthy, but then you take it up slightly upwards and chisel it, you know, just a little bit higher up. It will just, without contouring, it will just shape it a little bit. So again, with the Nars one, it is a universal shade. So even someone that is very, very, very dark, it's a lovely pickup. It glows. It works on every skin tone. But what's amazing, and I don't know if you've been sent that, they've got a new one and it's called Orgasm X.
Yes.
So look, it's got slightly more pigment, like a little bit stronger. So for some of us who are on that side of the shade, you know, where you're really going dark and you think, is that Orgasm really going to work on me? It's going to work on everybody as a pickup because it just will. But with the intense one, it covers all the bases. And I love it where there's something about when I've got a hint of it myself here now. So do you see, it just gives you that little bit of,
peaceful,
just a tiny bit of glow, and you can turn around and I've just dabbed a bit there and a bit there, and it is lovely. It is lovely. And I just think there are days where I put a little bit on there and I'm fine, but there are days when I've done a bit more with my eyes, or I just want to change how I look, then I do put it a bit upwards, take it out a bit more, and just make myself look more sophisticated.
Is blusher one of those items that you feel no makeup look is done without? Do you feel like, you know, actually to really even day to day, you know, blusher is quite a good pick me up for most women?
I have to say, when I was younger and I wasn't a professional makeup artist at the time, I never wore blusher. You know, I saw my late mum wearing blusher, and I could take it or leave it. As I became a professional and you look at lights and think about the face, you know, we always think of it as just one round face, but it is split into 3/3, you know. So you've got your eyes, you've got this cheek, and you've got your lower mouth, which is lips. If you neglect any patch, it does look a bit unbalanced. And I find that there are some very strong editorial looks where you think, right, I'm not going to use any blusher. It's going to be all about the eyes, or it's going to be all about the lips or something. But anywhere where you're trying to make somebody look attractive and natural and really glowing and feel like she's not a sort of a wall or not a breathing human being, you know, it's not too artistic. I think you need a bit of blush, whether that's a bit of lipstick that you just take from there and you just do that quickly, whether you just pinch it, whether you just tap a bit of something on. I think you look a bit lifeless without it. It's not heavy-handed, but just literally a wash of it, something. It balances out your eyes and your mouth, and it's your skin.
Yeah,
and
it's such a pick-me-up, isn't it?
Yes, and whether it's a cream or a powder one, a pinky colour, a taupey colour, a nudie, you know, whatever, I find it gives a tiny bit of life.
And would you use that, if you were using bronzer as well, would you use bronzer first?
I would say yes, because the bronzer sort of does the rest of your... Some people use the bronzer as their blush, and I think that's not what that is. That's for adding a bit of shape and a bit of light and dark. And a blusher gives you that bit of liveliness. It's a pickup. So yes, I would do your bronzing work first and then just use the blusher to pop it, to bring some life and put that after. And then make sure you blend the two things together if you are using both. Or three if you're going to put a highlighter on top of it.
Yeah. So we've spoken quite a lot about obviously face products, but just staying with some of the kind of makeup artist classics. Yes. I don't think I've ever met a makeup artist without Elizabeth Arden 8-hour cream in her or his kit. Why do you think it's such a classic? And is it really good? Is it quite good to have in your makeup bag as well as your sort of bathroom cabinet?
It is, because it comes in, you know, now. I mean, originally it used to come in that big tube and it was quite heavy smelling. I have to say that sometimes I found that smell very off-putting, but they now do that same, it's got all the qualities and it's fragrance free. And it is a classic because you can use it as a lip balm. You can use it on your cuticles. You can use it on set your eyebrows up. You can use it on split ends of hair. You can use it as a makeup to change the texture. You know, like people used to just dot a little bit of this in the shows, or dab a tiny bit of it on the cheeks, or on the Cupid's bow to your nose. It was a multi-purpose product that we always used, and you were always very not heavy-handed with it. Just a smear, you know, it's quite sticky as well. And I think since then, 30, 40 years later, there are lots of lovely things that have aped and copied this kind of formula and given us something that comes in different packs now. But that is the original, and it is wonderful. Like when we wanted to make something, a drippy gloss that you didn't want to move, you could just smear that on and it didn't go. And that camera captured the depth of that vinyl-like gloss. No product gives you that. No. That's why you keep going back to it. And it's wonderful for children, you know, if it's a fragrance-free one, as a mum to have it in your bag to wipe this. It's just, it's good for men. It's good for everything. It's superb.
Yeah, I must say, I actually love the medicinal smell. It really, again, it's one of those things. The fragrance just takes you back to the first ever tube that you bought. And I remember kind of, you know, I was working on a makeup counter actually at the time. and yeah, it just reminds me of that whole time. It is such a classic product, isn't it? So what we're going to do now is we've obviously got in the whole Subscribers' Choice Award, we've got some other skincare products, lots of lovely classics. Yes. But, you know, it would be remiss of us to not use Ruby for her incredible makeup knowledge here. So I'm going to go to some of the questions that we've been receiving throughout the session today. So first we go to Hattie, who's asked, any help with Bobbi mascara?
Oh,
when mascara tends, and actually this is something I've been meaning to ask you as well, Ruby. So obviously there's so many mascara formulas out there, but how do you make, you know, your lashes stay separate and lengthened without getting cloggy?
one of the first things is everyone has used at least 6 different types of mascaras in their life. They really have. We all try. As soon as you think there's a new one on there, you think, oh, I must try it. So we do. But over time, you must have realised that there is a particular brush on a mascara that suits you more than others. So whether that's a thinner one, or whether it's a bigger, bushier one, or whether it's a little tapered one, you know, for you, I love how that looks. So there isn't a universal one for everybody across the board. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this many hundreds of mascaras out there on the market, would we? So I think you need to know what works for me. So is it a sort of thin little brush like that? Is it a wider one? Is it a, you know, you roughly know. Then you also need to work out, is it a more, are you looking for more length or are you looking for volume? Like when they're volume, they're usually a slightly thicker, fatter brush. For length and definition, they're usually more sparse. And you don't want something with too much fibre in them. So you've got to, and sometimes what people do, as soon as they've got mascara, they pump that wand as much product as possible. I think, again, you need to sort of get rid of the excess. And on shoots, I always wipe off with the tissue, almost bulk of it, and I build up gradually.
Oh, wow.
So it's the formula in that brand of mascara that you're going to use, and there are loads of lovely ones out there, but you really need to know. Like for me, I know I can't have too fat a big brush because my eyes are quite small. I need that bit of definition. I need it to go close to my lashes and then just whisper it out, feather it out. So you will have found that people think, oh, it's a new one. First thing, as I look at the brush, then I look at the formula, how wet and dribbly it is.
Yeah.
And then you know it's in the application. Like, don't pump the wand. Don't just go willy-nilly, you know, build it up gradually, because sometimes it needs 2 or 3 coats to really look refined and clear. But don't do that in a rush, because I think that's what we do. We just think, yes, got the mascara, pump away, and then it kind of smudges. It's, you know, and if you know you've got slightly greasier eyelids, you can prep that with a little bit of powder or a little bit of eye shadow primer or something like that. Or if you're a contact lens wearer or something like that, that maybe a waterproof or water resistant one is better for you, so it doesn't melt. And day to day, I usually only do my top lashes. I don't really do my bottom ones if I don't want them to smudge that much. Or very, very thinly define my lower lashes. So I hope that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I always find that actually mascaras are really at their prime almost 2 weeks after you get them.
When they've dried out.
Yes. Yeah.
So you could do that. I mean, you sort of, people might think, oh my God, what a waste I'm advocating. But no, just leave it open a tiny bit so that it can dry a bit if it's a bit too wet. And if it's gotten very, very dry at the end of your use, you can close it tight and run it under very hot water. That will just make it all melt again. And you can get another few days or almost a week's worth of use out of it.
That's genius. I'll definitely be trying that, because I always feel that when I get to the end, you know, it gets the really good bit where, you know, where you're getting the right shape that you want. And in terms of eyelash curlers, I swear by eyelash curlers, but do you think they work for everyone? Do you think you're using them?
I really think they do. And I think you've just got to be careful. You know, someone like, I love my Choice Surat. That's my most favorite.
Yeah.
I love that. But then there's ones from Shiseido. There used to be ones from Shimmer in the old days when we all had that in our kit. But Tweezerman do a lovely one where they do something for bigger eyes, like for you, and then they do some that are for smaller eyes, like I have. So because now people realise, and we are having to wear a hell of a lot of masks, it's all going to be about that. Eyes have come through, and there's at least 10 mascara launches to date, whether that's Huda, Marc Jacobs, Hourglass, new one from Maybelline. There's oh my God, I can't even think. I'm saying them, and they keep sending them.
There's so many new ones.
There's so many lovely ones out there. So that.
And in terms of, so we're getting quite a few questions about rosacea and redness, and kind of almost how to cover that up, especially for skin's quite sensitive with foundation. Are there any sort of tricks on kind of achieving that coverage on redness without looking too cakey?
Well, it also depends where that redness has come from. Like if it is rosacea, it's usually stress. It could be hormonal. It could be broken veins underneath as well. So you need a tiny bit of cover, but it depends what has caused that. Is it just a one-off thing, or is it something you have? So again, you'd have to be very gentle with putting the skincare on so that it's not too heavily perfumed, or too rich, or too stripping on the skin. So that layer, and then you would need something, so a concealer, or the Mercier one would be lovely, that very lightly patted on will cover that, or something from like It Cosmetics, where it's got a little bit of that sort of CC factor that can very lightly be buffed on to kind of just camouflage, and it whisks and hides it without you needing to do that all over your face. Or maybe a thin tinted moisturizer, and then you just dab on where you are a little bit red. So it all depends what's causing that, and if you address that, and then you realize, okay, I need to be a little bit heavy-handed. Or something like Vichy, they have in the Derma Blend.
Really, the Derma Blend.
Little ones that then also last 8 hours to 12 hours, so again, you're going to need, what's great about the Vichy, it's great for sensitive skin, so it tends to go hand in hand. It could be a hormonal thing. It could just be, oh my God, I overdid it in the sun a bit, or I was skiing a bit, or it's temporary, or whether it's an ongoing scenario. You'd have to attack that with, be careful about too much alcohol, too much exfoliation, too heavily perfumed products. So get to the root cause if you can.
And in terms of, so we're getting lots of questions about brows, which, we can't not mention, because brows are so important, aren't they? I mean,
they are the frames to our faces. And
and how do you know what product would be right for you? Because obviously there's like fiber gels, there's pencils, there's brow mascaras, there's such a so many products out there.
Again, it's going to come down to you. Like, I don't know whether, if you've got thin brows, which you haven't, I have mid brows, they're not too thin, but they're not as full as yours. So there are optimal things for everybody. So there's pencils, there are like all these things you've said. So people have to look at actually what is the state of their natural brows. And is it that it's just too thin? Well, then you're going to be able to build it up, or you need to go to a brow specialist, like from now that we're allowed to go to them, to go to an expert to actually work out a shape for you, whether it's from the grooming side, and then you can put the cosmetic side to fill in the gaps or keep them in place, or literally build fibers where you have no hairs, So they're all, it's like a wardrobe of things. So there's not one thing out there to say that's the only thing you need. It depends on the effect you want. Like, I have to fill in the gaps in there, and I find it looks more natural on me when I use a powder. But for some people, they're able to do it with a pencil because there's no hairs to grip on, so they paint that on. For someone like yourself, I think you love a little bit of that sort of jelly fibre thing that just kind of it does both. It gives you a bit of cover and it keeps it in place, shapes it for you.
I need that.
It's just what you like. But really, and also the only thing is people go a bit too dark sometimes. And I think you need to be careful about that.
Yeah.
Too heavy-handed and not too dark, because you end up looking like Groucho. You want it to have a presence, but you don't want it to be the first feature that hits the room, or that's the first thing people see.
Yeah.
In your face.
So I'm conscious we're getting to fourth. We've been on.
Oh my
for
God!
1 minute.
Where this time goes.
God, I still feel like I've got so much to ask you. So in terms of we've got a lot of questions from our readers, kind of in their 50s and 60s, asking what a really nice sort of easy, simple day-to-day makeup look would be. You know, if you maybe had 3 or 4 products. What would be your recommendations without looking for quite a subtle daily makeup look?
Look, I'm 58 myself, so I'm right in that category of what they're
asking. I don't know how you are.
And for me, I would say sometimes I don't even use a foundation. I just use 2 concealers. So I would say if you're going to wear something, a nice tinted moisturizer or something gives you a little bit of cover and gives you a wash of something. Concealer you have to have, because that's your tool for whether you've got broken veins, a bit of red, a bit of this, a bit of that. I would have brush my brows, so hopefully they're groomed and they're done. And maybe some sort of, even more than eyeshadow, I would do something that's very close to your lash line. You know, a pencil or a liner or something very, very, it's like almost like tight lining, or just blending it there. Bit of mascara. You'll have the definition on your eyes, and then a sort of balmy product that has a bit of colour, you know, like the Bobbi Brown. They have lovely, not just Bobbi Brown, everyone out there has a little, or you just take the lipstick and you pat it on, and you know you can use that bit on your cheeks as well. So 4 products there, but concealer, mascara, a product that does both. You can use whatever lip product on your lips and then put it on your cheeks. Make sure your brows are done. And I think you're away. So you don't have to worry about 4 different eyeshadows blending in and trying to look natural.
And what about the great debate between black, brown, grey mascaras? Do you think black mascara works for everyone, or you know, should you avoid it if you're sort of on the fairer lash side?
I have to say that whether it's hands down, nothing beats black. Pencil, eyeliner, mascara. Nothing gives you that contrast and that drama like that. But if you're very, very fair, or it's bright sunlight out there and you need to, then there's nothing like a bright brown, you know, that just gives you a hint of you're trying to replicate a black without it being as harsh. Yeah. So if it was a wedding, or if it was somewhere nighttime, or you really want to have an impact, you can't get away. Black is the one that wins. It sells the most, and there's a reason for that. It's the one that really makes your eyes stand out. But if you were very, very fair, or you're red-haired or auburn-coloured, then that sort of a brown would work. But on me, it just, if I did it or you did it, or unless it's an effect like that, black is the one I'd always go to without building up.
Right. So, I mean, I guess you can control how much product you apply, but...
Totally.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that. You don't have to do a thick, goopy black. It can be a lovely, light black that you've wiped off the excess and then applied it gently. Yeah. So.
And what about with in terms of eyeliners? You know, obviously, as you age, the skin on the eyelids may become a little bit crepey, or you know, it's maybe a little bit more difficult to make a liquid liner look seamless on the top lash. So is that when you then switch to eyeliner pencils or felt tip liners? I mean, what's the kind of secret to getting that really natural looking eyeliner?
I think a pencil eyeliner gives you a bit more versatility, because you can use, when you sharpen it, you can get a thin line, and it can do what a liquid liner does, because you can literally flick it in. Like if you use Charlotte Tilbury's, you know, her rock eyeliner thing that she does everything with, that you can get a really rock and roll effect. But you can also, because it's nice and soft, you can smudge that near the eyes, like a little bit like you've got the liner on, but it's also smudged a little bit around the outer part of your eye. And that gives you versatility, you know, it makes it softer. It kind of gives you a guideline of if you wanted to put another shadow on there or follow it with a liquid liner. A pencil is great for that. And then a liquid liner, again, it doesn't have to be thick, does it? You can start off very, very thin on the inner corner and make it become a little bit thicker, or wing it out as you go outwards to your right, to the full-on 60s show dramatic avant-garde effect. So it's with both of those items, you can, if you experiment and work out what works for you, and also how much time you've got to apply that. You know, it takes me ages to do my liquid liner on me, because I can't hardly see. I smudge it, I clean it, I keep a load of those Muji little Q-tips to fine tune. And a pencil is easy for me. As soon as I've done it, I think, oh, that's dramatic, or I can smudge it out a little bit.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap up the session now, but I can't leave without asking you all about lipstick. So we've been asked a couple of times about how to leave either a gloss or lipstick on while you're eating. I mean, obviously, there are so many lipstick formulas out there at the moment, but are there any sort of real favourites that you think have lasting power, but also feel quite comfortable on the lips?
Well, I think formulations in long-lasting lipstick have come a long way. In the old days, it used to be so drying, you ended up looking like a poo mouth, you know, it was like, oh, so tight, and it wouldn't budge, but it just looked horrible and felt horrible. So Yves Saint Laurent, if you love the lovely ones from Charlotte Tilbury, the ones from Chanel with all the different ones, so there are loads of lovely ones out there for all budgets that make you be able to have a longer lasting effect, are sort of transfer proof, but are very comforting. So depending on your budget, whether it's a L'Oréal Paris or from the sort of high street drugstore pharmacy ones to the super luxury ones, like one of your favorites is the Victoria Beckham one, you know, the little bite, which is long lasting but just gives you a hint of color. So there are lots of them out there to pick.
What I will show everyone is I've got two of my current favorites. So the L'Oréal Paris matte lip crayon, which comes in loads of different shades and is $9.99. So these are great. They do smell of vanilla though, so if you're off put by quite a sweet,
we've tested those, yes, but it's a wonderful formula, and they've got lots of lovely colours.
Yeah,
all array.
That's what I'm wearing right now. But also on the other end of the scale, which have you tried these yet, Ruby?
No,
by Chanel.
So they're the double-ended ones. No.
Yeah, so these are great because they've there's a kind of lipstick on one end and then a gloss. I think Max Factor used to do these back in the day, didn't they?
Max Factor did used to do them. They've come and gone, but I would imagine with Chanel doing them now, they've updated that technology, and it will have that long lasting that gives you that comfort again, so that it doesn't look like it's not going to move. It is lively and it is very flattering.
Although I suppose with everyone wearing masks now, it's much more of an issue around the eyes, isn't it? Than you know, it's. Well, Ruby, thank you so much for your time. Honestly, I could honestly sit here and speak to you all evening.
I don't know where the time goes. It just kind of zoops along. But thank you for having me.
Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, Ruby. Have a fab evening.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye everyone.